Alright, so now that you've done a skull, a spine, and a rib cage, I'm going to cover briefly how to start to make a torso, something like this. That's going to be your next project. It doesn't necessarily have to be a male torso, but it could be something generic. I'm making this Indian character, a Native American character rather, and let's go ahead and hide his hat so you can see that. His bear hat. So it's just really something basic. We're going to start with the head and then move on to the torso. So I'm going to go up here and go to preferences and just initialize ZBrush for a second. And it's a good idea to have reference open on another screen as you work. Um, but like I said, we're doing something generic that's not necessarily going to be a specific gender, more of a base model you can use to make whatever you want. So first thing I'm going to do is go to Simple Brush and just grab a sphere and drag that out. And then I'm going to hit T so I can go into edit mode. Now what I want to do is make this a poly mesh so I can sculpt on it. So I'm going to click over here on Make Poly Mesh 3D. And forgive me if I'm being repetitive, but sometimes it helps to tell you guys where the hotkeys are again as you're sculpting. So I'm going to hit X to turn on symmetry, and then off on the side here, I'm going to go ahead and change my matte cap here to a white so I can see it a little bit better. So what I want to do, again, that was X to bring on symmetries. I'm just going to shape this into a very generic head shape. So I'm going to hit B for brush, M to magnify or just select my brushes that start with an M, and then I want to hit T to use topological. And then I'm going to hit the S key and expand my draw size. And just by holding Alt, I can move in one direction. So I'm just going to flatten out the sides. You can hit P to go into perspective. It gives us sort of a little bit better view. So I'm just flattening off the sides of the head. So it's kind of this is the upper cranium of the head. And then I'm going to rotate and hold shift to snap and just bring down like a jaw like this. Just from the front. Expand that out a little bit. I'm going to hit P again to turn off perspective so I'm more in orthographic so I can see that a little bit better. So you can see right off the bat just by doing that I get a nice head shape, just a generic head shape. Alright, so what I want to do is I'm going to hit S again for size, bring that down a little bit, hold Alt, and then just kind of push in two areas, making like an indented cavity where an eyeball would go. So just pushing in, holding Alt, moving those things in, something like that, pulling them out. And now I want to actually create the eyeballs that are going to go inside of here. So kind of pulling this out a little bit, creating sort of the mask area around where the eyes would go. The way I do this is I go to Subtool, and I'm going to append another sphere. In order to select that sphere, I can click on it here, or a trick is if you hold Alt and click, notice that it selected it for me. Now what I want to do is scale this down to fit it in that eye socket. So I'm going to hit E, just bring that down a little bit and move it over. So just something like that. Oops. I want to uniform scale it, so I'm going to click on this guy right here. Alright. I'm going to hit Q to return back to draw mode. Now what I want to do is duplicate this over here so I can use that as a base to form my eyeballs, my eyelids and so forth. So I'm going to go to Transform, or I'm sorry, Z plugin, Subtool Master. And you'll see here that I have a mirror, so I'm going to click Mirror. And I want to merge it into one subtool, and I want to move it across the X-axis. So I'm going to hit OK. So you can see now I have two eyes inside that area. Alright, now go ahead and save it. So I'm going to hit Control S. I'm going to just throw mine on the desktop for now. Just name it generic head. Make sure to throw this inside of your Google Drives or OneDrives or whatever. So I'm going to name this layer here eyes. And I'm going to duplicate it twice. And then I'm going to rename it again, upper lid. So rename upper lid. And then I'm going to select this one here and rename it lower lid. So lower lid. Now, you want to leave all three of these visible. And what I'm going to do is for upper lid, I'm going to make sure that's selected. Now what I want to do is I'm going to hold Control and Shift, and that's going to give me my selection tools. When I click on that, what I want is I want to cut off a big chunk, but I want to do it in a way that I get a little bit more control. So I'm going to use Slice Rectangle, and across both of these, so I'm going to hit X to make sure that's on. I'm going to hold Control and Shift, and I'm going to cut off the bottom. Now let's hide these two for a second so you can see this. I'm going to rotate this around a little bit. Looks like it didn't slice. Let's try that again. So Control and Shift. Let's try both maybe. Did not like that. Come on. Let's try this. Oh, I'm sorry. Trim rectangle, not slice rectangle. That was my first problem. Okay, there we go. So you can see that, right? So what we want to do is on this one, I'm going to Control Z again, and I'm going to go across both. So Control and Shift, go across both. Then I'm going to unhide the lid here, and I still have my Move Topological selected. So I'm just going to hold Alt, and just so I could see a little bit, I'm just kind of clicking here, just pulling it out, and I'm going to pull the middle up a little bit like this. Just kind of giving me a exaggerated upper eyelid. See that? So holding Alt and just pulling out a little bit away from the model, I create that upper lid. So I'm going to go down here, turn back on my lower lid, and turn off this eyeball. So we're really only seeing our upper lid and our lower lid. Holding Control and Shift again, I'm just going to go across, slice that, and I'm going to turn this back on. And then with my upper lid, I'm going to hold Alt. Oops, let's make sure that I have X on, right? So let's make sure that's selected too. Our lower lid is selected. Pull that down a little bit like this. And there's our upper and lower lid. Maybe I went a little bit too far there. Let's pull that down a little bit. We just need a little bit of showing there. All right, I'm going to stop this video here. And what we'll do next is we'll bring these together and then we'll work on the nose.